this one's working. But all right. Hello, everybody. Good morning and welcome. I'm Tony Hall, for those of you that I haven't met, from Navigator Consulting. I'm a former recruitment business owner and manager, and now I consult, coach, and mentor recruitment companies. And Captain's Tables are, as you all probably know, our monthly thought leadership group where we tackle some of the really important and timely issues that help support the growth of recruitment companies. And Captain's Table is very kindly brought to you by JobAdder, who let us have this wonderful facility here, and William Buck, who hosts us in Melbourne and Brisbane. A Positive also, People 2.0. We also have people from that company here today, Digit Pro and A Positive as well. So we've got 5 great supporters. Couldn't do it without all you guys attending. Thank you very much. And thank you for those of you that are repeat visitors. We'll keep trying to deliver topics that are really useful and that provide you with great value. So thank you all very much for being here. And thanks, Sarah and team, for setting up everything for us here. So I would like to introduce to you Martin Herbst, who's CEO of JobAdder. Some of you may or may not have met Martin before, but he knows the recruitment space extremely well, as you could imagine. JobAdder is the leading recruitment management system in Australia. Well, what probably I call it the leading one. I know it's a good system because the teams I used to run before it was the one that my team would complain the least about. So that always told me that JobAdder was the market leader. And but anyway, Martin's not here to talk about JobAdder. Of course, he's here to talk about AI. AI is huge. It's almost so big that it's difficult for us to get a head around how we actually use it. So this session's more around the implementation. Last session we did on AI was all about what it was and what it could potentially do. We're going to dig deeper now into implementation and augmentation, and Martin's going to share some great success secrets with you. So Martin, thank you very much for speaking, and over to you.
Thanks so much, Tony. I like that. So like we've got some people in the marketing team. JobAdder, the system that recruiters complain least about. I'll put that up there on the website. So hey, thanks for coming. Thanks, Tony, for organizing. Thanks for everyone for helping us out. Generative AI. This is something no one else is talking about right now. Just here. So, but seriously, as Tony said, what we wanted to do was, there has been a lot about talk. This is not the first conference or webinar or seminar about generative AI. Definitely won't be the last. So there's been a lot of stuff that's been out there, as you probably have seen some of it. And we will touch on some at a high level, just to help create a bit of a common language or some shared frameworks. But the idea of this, the outcome that we want to get, the objective of this session is really, it's an interactive session. There will be some expectations for you guys to participate a bit, right? Because it's not just effective me going through a bunch of slides. So the idea is how we actually get practical with it. How do we get practical with generative AI in recruitment? But I am going to start off a little bit high level just to set the scene, and then we'll go into a bit more the practicality and some tips around it. Technology. Maybe I'll go over here. I forget, is that the clicker that's got the battery or not? But I'll start with this. There we go. So I'm not usually this vain or narcissistic, but this is not a photo. This is an AI generated photo. I picked this one because this is the only time you actually see me dressed up like that. This is about as dressed up as I'll ever get right now. But it gives you just, we'll share a couple examples, right? Just to sort of give you a taste of what's out there, not just text-based generative AI, which is like ChatGPT or Google Bard, but some of the other things that are happening with Gen AI. Okay, cool. Just have to point it. Cool. So let's start off with asking you guys a bit on, what have I done? I don't work in tech at all. So am I just this one, right? Oh, that one. Okay, cool. So let's ask you guys. So where are you right now in this journey? And so overall, in terms of the adoption curve, Raise your hand if you're at number 1. You haven't even tried it yet. So that's okay. 2 of you here. Anyone else? Let's go raise your hand if number 2, you've tried it, but you're just really kind of experimenting, like you're playing around with it. So that's about half, maybe more, excuse me, more than half. What if raise your hand number 3 if you're comfortable using it? You use it more on a regular basis. So 1 or 2, 3. And then any experts. Yeah, I won't even raise my hand for an expert. Maybe, I'm a 3. So, and that's representative, I think, what we're seeing in the market right now. Overall, there's still a substantial amount of people out there, 40%, who haven't even tried it yet. Then you got 35% who are experimenting. A quarter, right? These are the earlier adopters who are more comfortable using it. Probably, it's a very, very small number who actually consider themselves experts. So it's early days, right? We're talking about since November, really when ChatGPT, November of last year, 1 year ago, when ChatGPT came on the scene. Lots has happened since then. So ChatGPT came onto the scene November. Everything seemed to change, right? Changed since then. I'm gonna get a little bit geeky about this, because it just didn't come out of nowhere. So this will be a bit conceptual, a little bit more historical, but then we'll get more into practical. So it actually goes back, if you think about actually natural language processing, or even just the texting or sort of, chatbots, it goes back to the 1960s. There was something called ELIZA, which is actually the first, I think, messenger or message system. In the 1970s, there's a bit more of an AI winter freeze that kind of set in. But then with the 80s, right, these are big sort of inflection points. You had the personal computer became more ubiquitous. And that's where sort of some of the natural language processing, sort of the advent of that came in. Another big stepping stone or inflection point was the internet, right? So now you've got this medium with all this data they can grab, feed into ultimately browsers and search engines. Then in the 2000s, we lost to Jeopardy, big step for AI. 2010s, Google's AlphaGo beat us our best human at Go. And then, of course, last year, was with GPT-4 and ChatGPT. Lots of analogies for how do you think about ChatGPT? And that's the most common referred to generative AI tool out there, because I think it's first mover and because it's quite effective. The reason why it works is because it has conversations with us, well-organized conversations. You can think about it, for instance, as like an army of Pulitzer Prize-winning writers, mathematicians, economists, really at your disposal. So what does it actually stand for, the GPT? So it's a generative pre-trained transformer, right? So these is a large language model. So it's trained off of large language models to be able to have good conversations with you based off a lot of data. So think about it as a talkative, really knowledgeable parrot, right? But that also has a good tendency to be able to hear what you're saying, to be able to input that into future conversations. So we talked ChatGPT, Google Bard. This is text-based generative AI. There are other versions out there. I want to share this because, again, I think it just opens up the possibilities of some of these technologies. And so this particular person, this came out a few months ago, used a couple of different tools, 11 labs, essentially texting to voice. So he's written basically a script for a movie, and then actually text to video to actually help generate the video using just his self-image.
A long, long time ago at Lady Winterbottom's lovely tea party, which is
in the smoking ruins and ashes of New York City.
A fierce woman ain't playing no games and is out to kick some butts.
Against the unimaginable, brutal, merciless, and scary.
Lobby boy of the delightful Grand Budapest Hotel.
Hi.
And everything seems doomed and lost until...
A super handsome man arises, the true hero and great mastermind behind all of this.
So you can see, right, that just took a few hours to put together. So the potential of what some generative AI can do. Okay, we are going to bring it to recruitment in a second, so stay with me. Okay, so this is all happening really fast. So ChatGPT, right? First you had 3.5. More recently, you have a ChatGPT, the latest version, ChatGPT 4, which I think is subscription based. But you see essentially, if you take some of these, like how smart is it? What they've done here is they've taken some of the standardized tests. These are American-based standardized tests. You've got the GRE, which is a graduate record exam, which is usually for verbal. You have the evidence-based, it's a reading and writing, like the verbal SAT. This is a college entrance exam. The bar exam for law, the math SAT, the LSAT for law, et cetera, et cetera. So the latest version really scoring between 85th percentile of all test takers or 99th. And so that's within a few months and just a few months after the last version. And you see some more of the news happening where, if you recall, when ChatGPT came out, it actually couldn't grab data from the web past, I think, September 2021. Now it can actually do that, the most recent version. So it's actually able to real time grab some more recent data into the large language model. This thing is very funny. Okay, so there's a lot of, because this is happening so fast, there's a lot of things out there, misconceptions versus realities or myths. I think there's a few of them, but the ones I want to share today is that, so ChatGPT produces incorrect data. That can be partially true, but to be clear, it doesn't inherently generate false data, right? It works off large language models, and it's mathematically based to come up with the best, text answers to the questions or the queries or the prompts you put in. But its responses are based on the data it's trained on, right? So its potential lies in gaining profound insights from the data. Now, you may have heard ChatGPT will hallucinate. That does happen. What's happening there? It's mimicking essentially human behaviors and intelligence. And if you're not prompting it, I think, the right way, or if some people tend to try and confuse it, it will try and please you and then come up with things that maybe aren't fact-based. So it's not 100% accurate, but it's largely very useful. We'll talk more about how you can think about using it. ChatGPT can handle any request. Well, really, it is very valuable, but it's really for more answering questions and brainstorming. It kind of lacks the contextual understanding that humans can provide. So it should really be used with human expertise to maximize its effectiveness. So again, think of it, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, it's more of an intern, right? Like it's an assistant that can provide data or content, but that needs to have that human overlay, that human expertise to really move it forward. ChatGPT is only useful for large businesses? Absolutely not. Actually, if you think about it, it can be the opposite. It's a technology that can help level the playing field. If you're using it effectively to help you get ahead in some of the recruitment tasks, which we'll talk about, like some generating content, for example, you can actually set yourself apart. You can, particularly when it comes to things like content creation, blogs, marketing content, job descriptions. Okay, so a few months back, let's bring this to recruitment. A few months back, we sent out a survey through a bunch of recruiters, and we asked them, right? Because generative AI, if you think about it, it is a tool. It can be thought of as an automation tool. It's an automation tool, particularly when it comes to generating content. But there's lots of things that are out there that can help automate. And throughout the recruitment sort of workflow life cycle, there are all these tasks, right? That there's opportunities to go faster, to be smarter, to automate. So we've asked across all those different tasks, if you think, what are the ones that recruiters most want to have, help in terms of automation? Number one, it's actually not surprising, which is really more about database management. Actually, how you're getting candidate information, for example, interacting with candidates to get more relevant information about what their job status is, where they are in the market, et cetera, to be able to make sure the database that you have is relevant, it's live, it's fresh, right? Because usually about 40% of the roles that are filled, give or take, are people that are in your database many times, but you've actually paid to have them advertised to find that job versus find them in the database. So there are a few different sort of tools that are out there that help with automation. There are a couple of partners of ours, Roy AI and Smart AI. They're not necessarily generative AI based. Things like robotic process automation or machine learning that helps automate a lot of those marketing communications to help manage your database. Another one's lead generation. Right? This is particularly on the business development side. What are you using for automation tools to help reach out, find good information about potentially business development, new business that you can find? Sourcewell is one of our partners that it can be used for that in conjunction with our JobAdder opportunities that helps with that business development. But what I want to do here, I want to bring it back to an example for generative AI. And, I'm going to share some things and I want to be very transparent here. I want this to be very practical. And it wasn't really practical. The coin didn't really drop for me until I actually could see some of this stuff in action. And this partner was actually it's called Prompt Recruit. Gained access to our API a few months ago to use GPT plugins with the JobAdder ATS to do a lot of things, particularly when it came to monitoring your agency's performance and asking different questions and really treating essentially ChatGPT as a way, as an intern to get valuable information. So this video is with Chris Collins, the founder of Prompt Recruit, just taking us through how he does this. Okay, let's try that.
In this video, I'm introducing you to promptrecruit.ai. Promptrecruit.ai is an integration into JobAdder that's bringing generative AI into your JobAdder system. Connecting up is dead simple. Come to promptrecruit.ai and you can simply connect up. The plugin gives you all kinds of capabilities into your JobAdder system, searching for candidates, looking for your placements, but let's give you a quick example. So let's say I'm going to go and meet with my client BHP, and I'm wanting to understand, well, what am I doing in JobAdder around BHP? So I just ask this question into ChatGPT. It goes off using Prompt Recruit and looks at the jobs that we've got going on around the truck driver. Looks like we're looking for a head of talent acquisition, and we've made one placement. This is all linked into JobAdder, and it's giving me some feedback. So let's see if there's any applicants for that specific role that's in there. So out it goes again, live look into JobAdder through ChatGPT. It's showing that we've got a couple of applications there. Awesome, so I've got the information. Now I want ChatGPT to help write up the presentation. So it's giving me the introduction, talking about those specific job openings, what we've done with that truck driver and who we placed. And everywhere through here, it's giving a nice little conclusion. So I could take that, edit that, ask it to do more things. But you know what? Let me give me a summary of that candidate, Chris Collins, that applied for the head of talent acquisition. So back into JobAdder, it's bringing out all the information that I have there, presenting it back into here. So I could do a bunch of different things with it. You can see all the applications that they've done, but this is a live lookup using ChatGPT into my system. As I said, all the links are live. So I can click on one and it's going to bring me back into JobAdder to see a little bit more information there. And you can see Prompt Recruit has also given a nice little summary of that candidate automatically for me with some great interview questions that I could use.
There's a lot there, but you can see essentially like what he's using is covering a few different of those tasks. Like, starting with business development. Tell me more about BHP. How do we get more business from them? Come up with different candidate summaries, et cetera. So overall, what we think, and again, this is to help seed the conversation for you guys to help think about, well, how do you actually apply this?
In this video, I'm introducing you to promptrecruit.ai. Promptrecruit.ai is a...
There we go. So the biggest thing when you think about generative AI, really, like this quote is the best. When you look at what's driving emergent consumer use cases and excitement, it's AI companionship leads the way. What that means is like, that the recruiter is always should be in control. And if you think about the recruitment profession, if there's any profession that's out there, it's probably the most to gain from AI and probably the most protect because it's the most human-based, the most human connected. we think about, and this is some concepts that we pulled together, we're currently working on. Some of this will be coming out soon. Think about as ADDIE augmented recruiters. And the idea is how do you actually be a companion or co-pilot, for example, with the recruiter along every step of the journey. So for example, let's start from the very beginning. The recruiter, again, who's leading essentially the whole process, creates a new business development opportunity. ADDIE then, as that companion, takes those opportunity details and converts that, right, using ChatGPT, into a summary of that company and links to public profiles of people who are already working in similar positions at that company. Right. So next important step in the journey, recruiter, you win, great news. You've won the business, you've won that your particular role, that job. They convert that opportunity into a job order. And then maybe that's just a few bits of information. So ADDIE then takes that job order info, including the job title, the company, the workplace location, et cetera, and converts it into an attractive, non-biased job description for the recruiter and potentially even a LinkedIn post. Again, the recruiter, though, should not just take that at face value. You'll look at it, that suggested job description, that makes maybe a few edits. We'll talk about how this can be done through prompting, for example, to have it be in your own voice, right? And then so the official becomes the official job description, and at which point the job status is updated to qualify. At this point, then ADDIE, with this job description, now can take that job order information and the JD itself. Again, what's the next step in the process? Come up with 10 good screening questions to help start screening some of those candidates out there. Now the recruiter sources the candidates using those screening questions, and you found let's say five candidates for a review that you want to send over to the client. And ADDIE then can help the recruiter generate, like to say, candidate summaries. Saw that a little bit with Prompt Recruit. Grab me those candidate details from what's in the database, from the CV, et cetera, and come up with those candidate summaries to be able to float over to the actual client. Great news, a client wishes to progress with 2 candidates and wants to go to the interview, right? So they go ahead and notify the candidates of their upcoming interview. And then again, another step in the process, I think can provide a pre-interview guide prep to help prep those candidates, and then include company about the summary of the role, the company itself, any news items, et cetera, et cetera. In the last part of the journey, you've received news that the client wants to go ahead with one of the candidates, and now it's about actually negotiating salary and the other details. There's even something you can do with that, where ADDIE actually provides maybe a salary guide or tips and tricks to negotiate the best package. So let's pull back a little bit. What are the different steps? What has this companion, in this case, it's generative AI companion, actually helped along the recruitment journey? The number one is actually helps with the business development. Number 2 is the actual job description for that particular role. 3 is in the screening questions to help then source and select the best candidates. Then the actual candidate summaries to hand over to the client, and the pre-interview prep guide for the candidate themselves, and an even salary guide and negotiation tips. And this is where I want to have a little conversation, right? So before we get there, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into actually how this works. So if you think about how that actually would work within JobAdder, the system, the job description is created that goes into the system. Then the idea is then you're actually using a prompt interface to be able to iterate on that JD. So you have either ask it again or convert it to actually a job description. And this work comes with the art of prompting, right? And it's really important, if you've used ChatGPT, is not just to input a prompt or a question and just be okay with what's come out. You can actually mold it like a sculpture. In this case, it could be, what tone of voice would you like to apply to that JD? Is it professional? Is it inspirational, technical? What persona would you like to adopt? again, like, we're sort of helping the recruiter, with things, but ultimately, how do you give some authority and ownership back to the recruiter so they can apply their own voice to that actual, to that content? And it could even be certain must-have requirements that you want to have in the role, or certain emphasis on company values. And then ultimately that JD then can be taken and converted into a LinkedIn post, right? And then to help advertise that role. Okay, so these are the 6 different areas, and I love to hear from you all. Like, let's start with number 1, and we'll do a quick, fun poll. Like, actually look at all of this across 1 through 6, and tell me which one you'll be most interested in experimenting or, diving deeper into, at your agency. Just think about that for a second. And it could also be something we've already started to experiment with, and you actually are doing some of that right now. So choose one to start, and raise your hand. I'm going to go through one, through each one. So who likes the idea of number 1? Raise your hand. Okay, we've got 3, 4 people. Okay, and then number 2 around the job description. Raise your hand if you're mostly curious about that. Just 3, okay. You gotta raise your hand for something. Okay, so how about number 3, screening questions? A few more, 3 or 4. So we got some good 5, good distribution. Candidate summaries. Okay, another 4 or 5 or so. Pre-interview prep guide. Ollie from our team is raising his hand to make sure it doesn't get some love. And then number 6, salary guide and negotiation tips. Okay, so about 2. So it's a pretty good spread. So you can see there's opportunities across the recruitment lifecycle. Now, I want someone to share a bit, like, who's actually tried one of these already, and that, or even if it's just experimented a couple times. Okay, yeah. Can I ask you guys to share your experience?
For ChatGPT, we're probably using it on a daily basis, a few of us within the business, especially around candidate summaries. From a business owner's point of view, I've been utilizing it for job descriptions, and never thought of it for the screening questions, I have to admit. That's a good one. Yeah. But I actually also haven't thought of it for business development. So, but yeah. Well, first of all, for candidate summaries, some of the roles I'm working on are like your 150K plus candidates. So they're very, very chunky backgrounds, which you do need to formulate into something very professional, but small snapshot. And I find it very, very helpful with that. Job description, perfect. The job description would take me 2 weeks to put together. I'm not technical in that sense. It took me about 2 minutes to do job descriptions for the business. What I don't like about it, it's taken a little while to know how to prompt. But once you sort of get your head around how to prompt, you can move pretty quickly with it. But I would not say that I'm comfortable with ChatGPT by any means. I just, because I think there's a lot more I need to learn to be able to utilize it within the business. But on a daily basis, easily, we are using it. Yeah. Yeah. So I started using it after our first Captain's Table event where we were talking about it. I think, Carly, you had only just started using it yourself. So I hadn't even been on it. I didn't even know how to download it. I had to get the IT guys to do it for me. And I didn't know how, like I'd put in a few questions like, oh, I can't even think of some of the first couple of prompts I was trying to do, but it just wasn't understanding what I was trying to say. But now I'm at the point where I could say, summarize this and in a third person, like I can give the prompts, but I haven't found it exactly by going and doing Google searches or looking at people's LinkedIn posts or anything like that. It's just taken time to be able to figure out what the right way is to prompt it to get what you want out of it. But I'm still experimenting. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I use it more for the candidate summary side. I like it because you can pull the main details, that profile page of a candidate, and tell them to break it down into, say, 3 top paragraphs. It can be very clunky, though. That's what I don't like. They make it quite complex in how they're describing a candidate, or they'll use very complex words that I then need to prompt again simpler or more succinct. Because when we did first start using it and you say reinterpret in first person or third person, it gives you very, very large information chunks, and they tend to over communicate what you're trying to say. But yeah, now I use it quite religiously with summaries, to be honest. Yeah.
Anyone else want to share? And I would love someone to actually, if you feel comfortable saying, like, if you've tried it out, but then stopped, and why?
Yeah, so I've tried it out for a couple of different things. First of all, I started just like using it socially, not because I don't have any friends, but just to just to see what it could do. And then I started using some of it for recruitment in some of those sorts of things, I guess, candidate summaries that have been mentioned there. And I stopped using it, I mean, after hearing what you said, probably because I didn't work hard enough at the prompts, to be fair. And then the other side of it was, a lot of the times when I'm speaking to a client, I have the interview locked in before I send over the CV, or I think, that's the way I try to work with businesses. I just try and put it straight into their calendar before the information is there. So I find that there wasn't necessarily that need for me to write those extensive candidate summaries because of the relationships I've worked really hard to have with different businesses.
And I think we hear that on occasion, right? Because it's how you can actually use it to be able to get, one step ahead. But then, if it's not producing the sort of the content or the output that you're comfortable, that's where you feel like in your voice, do you feel that the value that you're getting from that, sort of is enough to keep using it if you keep prompting it? There's also, and I don't know if it's off the top of my head, but there is a way you can actually train ChatGPT based on your own unique style. You can actually, I think, input, for instance, prior emails and other things like that. So ultimately, you're getting a bit of a leg up in terms of the actual, so you don't have to continue to sort of prompt it and sort of guide it as much, because it kind of knows or mirrors or mimics your tone a bit more. Yeah.
We also attended when Chris came and spoke about same sort of thing. Sorry. We've had some good success, I guess, using it for job description, screening questions, things like that, which is great. And, I've tried, the more you prompt, the better it gets, obviously. Our biggest sticking point is data and privacy. So we won't do candidate summaries in ChatGPT at this point, because we don't feel like we've resolved the Australian privacy legislation aspect of that, and just wanted to know your thoughts around that, given that there's no sort of way that a candidate can retract their personal information from ChatGPT. We're not explicitly asking them, can we put their data into that platform? So yeah, I just would like some thoughts on that, and if anyone else has kind of dealt with that in other ways.
Yeah, I'm by no means the authority on that either. And there's been a lot of questions that we've gotten from our different agencies. I think coincidentally or ironically, we have heard from agencies that, I think, and this is important, we'll talk about this as one of the tips, is that it is important to have just an approach to how you're actually using, the tool and the technology when it comes to data. So in some agencies have literally used ChatGPT to help craft a data, handling policy. And there are ways that you can actually use ChatGPT so that the information you're putting in doesn't get put back into the large language model. But I think it's important that you're actually applying certain precautions and then working with a team on the things that you should be put in or not put in. like sensitive personal information of candidates that you don't think that you want to put in there, then I would say work around that and develop that policy. But I would actually open it up to other people, because I'm sure this is a question that a lot of you guys are trying to wrangle with.
Yeah, we've got policies in place now around, we've got actual formal policies in place now around ChatGPT. I'd never put anyone's personal details into there. So if I was to do a candidate summary, it would be more general bullet points about them, and then get it to formulate it and make it sound better for the client application. But I would never put personal details in there, company names, anything like that. So yeah, you do a little bit of work behind the scenes to make sure nothing does go in there. But yeah, we've definitely got pretty strict policies in place that got rolled out across the company.
Yeah, and I don't know if anyone here is would have any thoughts, on Tony or anybody else, about the Australian sort of legal point of view, because I know the legal sort of landscape is still adapting. You got certain cases like Italy, right, which I think they've banned the use of it for certain reasons. I think I was experimenting with this exact same point even just before today. And I said, okay, I am a managing director of an Australia-based agency, and I have concerns about, sharing personal information of candidates, with ChatGPT, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Help me come up with a data policy, and came up with a really well-crafted 12-point approach, not just about generative AI and ChatGPT, but in general, right? How to think about data, and how to encrypt some of the data that you have, how to actually have, how users are how your recruiters in general are actually handling data. So I think that's a good place to start. Any of these others that people have tried out that they want to share their experience, or has anyone tried this with their team yet? Like, had any sort of training or courses or anything like that back at your agency? Yeah. Yeah, thanks for that. I'm going to bring that to, some of the things that we've been hearing back as well from a lot of, recruiters across JobAdder. So what are some of the tips, some of the things to be, if you're on the earlier part of the adoption curve, right? How to get this started, because it really is a lot about creating a bit of a culture of experimentation and creating new habits. And it's got to work for you, and there's certain limits to that. But one of them is, so start off with understand the challenges that you want to solve. Like, it should be in the context of, what you want to solve within the business right now. Where are you in that journey? Is it about business development right now? Or is it really about, sourcing, selection, or is it about the candidate experience? Where are the areas that you think that you've got, you really want to improve upon? And maybe that's where you actually pick where you want to experiment and try some things out a bit more, right? To your point, sorry, what was your name in the back? Laura. Thanks, Laura. Assess the readiness of your team, right? It could be just you, or you could have a team, and there's usually maybe at least one who's like the early adopter, right? Like, who's really into this. We've got a few in our team, and you identify them as super users, right? These are the people who can actually be champions, right? Who will be, and you give them that sort of that sponsorship, that support to try it out. They'll even want to share, they can be the trailblazers that try some things out and then share it back with the rest of your team to bring them on that journey. There's always a, one early adopter in the bunch. At the same time, I think you want to set realistic expectations with your team. Because if you do have, let's say, this kickoff session or a sit down, you can't expect it to all of a sudden be this panacea in solving everything. There are limits to it, right? There are limits on what you can do. So you don't want to snuff out the excitement of the adoption by saying, hey, got to use ChatGPT right now, and they go through that sort of, that adoption hurdles, and they get discouraged. And the champions can help with that too. On that note, right? So treat it like an intern, not a director. The idea of it, I think when it really is, ChatGPT, Google Bard, generative AI assistants are at their best is when they're helping you provide some content that you can then take forward, right? Put your stamp of approval or sort of your own voice. And there's other reasons as well. I think that's important. Again, so if you're, let's say, for example, if you're using it to post on LinkedIn or using it for marketing or even for your website content, you need it to be unique. You want it to be authoritative because those will also play into, for example, Google rankings. If you've got a lot of generic, AI generated content, it won't rank as highly on Google and may not, also rank as highly on LinkedIn algorithms. At the very least, if it doesn't have that your tone, that uniqueness, that creativity that comes across, it won't be as compelling. So how are you going to use it sort of like to stand on the top of it to have that sort of authenticity? We talked about this already. So develop an approach for data protection. So I would even maybe start ahead of time, before you even start experimenting. What are the boundaries that you're comfortable with, and how do you actually then get that across with your team? And this is the big one, right? So if you think about I remember the day that I was introduced to Google. I was in a computer lab at NYU. And the early adopter in our class said, "Hey, Martin, have you checked this? Have you checked out this Google yet?" I was like, "No." And so I typed in a search, and I was amazed, right? Because just free text, response time, relevant results, and so we all learned sort of the art of search, of keyword searching, and that was a whole new beginning, right? And so in this expectation, now we've got a new platform, right, with a new sort of art of prompting. And we're still early days. I think we're still learning through this quite a bit. But this is where I think I think I like to think of as sculpting, right? You've got this amazing sort of first iteration of a sculpture, but then how do you actually prompt in a way to actually really come to life in a way that suits your vision? We've talked to a few other customers of ours have actually had good sharing sessions, like even brown bag lunches, right? Actually, how do you foster this culture of experimentation and creativity? Usually is around sharing, getting those early adopters, those champions involved as well. What's working? What's not working? Why? And then in general, just if you're still early in that adoption curve, or maybe you've stalled out, just start experimenting, start toying it. There's going to be some things that work for you. Some people have said candidate summaries, some job descriptions, and others. Start somewhere, and then you can build from there. So any other questions? Yeah, Ben.
Is Addy? What's the situation with Addy at the moment? Can we use it?
It's not available yet. Hector is in our design team, and he's actively. Hector, do you want to answer that? No, just kidding. So it is a concept right now. We're working on it. We've got a team that's putting some stuff together. I don't want to put Hector on the spot right now and say when it's going to be available, but we're very excited that something will be coming out pretty soon. Across, similar to one of those concepts that we shared with you. There is ways you can do it already, though, in JobAdder, if you are interested, through Zapier integrations. We've got pretty much almost all the different recruitment tasks. You can actually use Zapier that plugs into GPT, and then we'll write the content back into JobAdder. And Prompt Recruit is other tools like Prompt Recruit are integrated within JobAdder. Yeah, the whole concept of Addy really is the interface with underneath is the power by the GPT plugin, right? Hector, come on up here. Come on up. These are such great questions, and I can't, answer this by myself. We don't have Hector here. That's it. Yeah.
That's something that we are looking at. We really want to control the information that we share with generative AI or ChatGPT, because we are cautious about like personal information, especially sensitive personal information. So our efforts right now, and that's why ad is taking a bit longer than we wanted to, is because we want to make sure that when we release it, is secure for both the recruiter and the candidate's information. That's our goal. So of course you will know what you are sharing, because we will communicate that, and we will make sure that you don't share anything that you shouldn't share. I hope that was enough.
Yeah, and I think that's a fun thing that we're finding out right now is really the art of prompting, right? So we want to make it, again, this whole idea about companionship, right? Ideally, it's really native within your workflow, and you don't want to be going out of the system into something else, copy and pasting and putting it back in the system. It should be a seamless and exchange of that content as much as possible. And it should be done in a way where it's not clunky like it is right now in terms of that prompting. But how do you actually remove some of the friction around the clunkiness in a way, but at the same time give some of the dexterity to use to for that prompting? So that's some fun stuff.
Some questions for you. We've had some questions emailed in. There's a couple of people that couldn't make it today. First one for you, Martin, on the presentation. Now, you didn't mention job ads. And if anyone goes searching on Seek looking at job ads, you'll see some really good ones and you'll see some terrible job ads. It's a big source of embarrassment for us all, some of the job ads that have gone up there, especially the ones that someone has hit submit and they've only half written the job ad and there's only half a job ad up there. What's your view on how to use ChatGPT to really make job ads compelling? Because obviously you want the best candidates to respond and not just the ones that are really, desperate for work.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. You see a lot of job ads, even before technology, that's just not sort of thought through. And I think that's what we're finding is that it can be a really good advantage because it's that creative block that I think a lot of any of us have, right? It's work, right? Like, how do I actually get started and make sure I'm representing something that's accurate, but I need to get through my day, right? It's admin. So the great thing about ChatGPT is it because of the large language model and so much data that's pulling, it can give you a really good start. It can give you that first 80% that's going to be probably better than most of the job ads that are out there. But you need that extra 20% to make sure that you're representing the client the way you want to represent the client, that you're getting across the unique aspects of the role, and then ultimately you have your unique voice, either you as a recruiter or your agency to come through. So, that's why we sort of caution or sort of encourage, if you're using this and using it for this team, it's the intern, right? It's not the final say. So it will give you that leg up. It will give you probably the 80%, but you need that the extra 20% to, and you're going to be going much faster, even with that.
Thanks. So Andy, who runs Attribute Recruitment, anyone know Andy? Remember Andy? He's unwell today. He's didn't want to spread his, he has a cold and his wife has COVID. And so he very kindly said he wasn't coming, but he said, can you just share my examples of how I use ChatGPT? Because I wanted to share it with the group. And to Martin's point, he uses it on a daily basis for every single email communication that he does. He runs his email communications through GPT to check that it's written well and there's no grammatical errors, there's no typos, and to make it better. And he said he had to write a very difficult redundancy email last week. And he said ChatGPT phrased it in such a better manner and a more human element. Ironically, it's a machine doing it, but the human factor he couldn't get across in the redundancy email that went with the meeting he had with the person, he said was just done brilliantly. So he uses it on a daily basis. And I just can't help but think we should all be using it on a daily basis to check our work, to improve our communications, to to prompt our thinking even, when we are doing presentations or client meetings or we are presenting candidates or, we're even thinking about what we do with our business. And I'm really scared as a management consultant that, you can just ask ChatGPT all the questions that you would be asking me. And it's nearly there. So my challenge is to create an avatar on a website, which is just what Martin's done. And he's got to tell me how to do that and how the lips can move. And you just ask me questions about how to run a great recruitment company, because ChatGPT knows a lot of the answers, but it won't have the real world examples, I think. And I think that's the question I want to go back to Martin on is where does ChatGPT start in recruitment and where does it stop? Where does the human element take over that is so important in recruitment?
I think that we'll pull back a little bit. And I have a more recent experience in recruitment, but not as, much experience in recruitment as probably many of you, or definitely Tony, but, going back to some of the big technology, innovations or sort of inflection points. One of the first ones in the last, a couple decades, maybe 3 decades now, was just the internet and, job boards. Right? There was a lot of fear and concern at that point. Like, what are job boards going to do for the role of recruiter? They didn't really affect it too much. Then what happens with LinkedIn, right? They're creating their own database, their own network. What's the role of the recruiter there? Again, didn't, really displace or, the recruiter. If anything, enhance the role of the recruiter. So that all said, I think I heard this well put the other day that it is something that, that in recruitment, that you will need to lean into, right? Because it won't be, the recruiters won't get displaced, but the recruiters that aren't using technology are definitely more susceptible. I personally view that if you think about of all the professions of the world, the ones that are most to gain or to benefit and probably most relatively protected are actually recruiters, because it's one of the most human-based roles out there. There's so many things that AI won't be able to do for a long time that humans can do. And, what we're at right now will probably be, at least for the next 5 to 10 years, is that this actually provides an amazing opportunity that you can actually spend less time doing the tech or admin-based work and more time actually meeting with clients, meeting with candidates, having real conversations. And that's the things that you can't replace, with a talking version of Tony on a website. Children's bedtime stories. So if you didn't hear the ideal customer profiles and buyer personas for your new agency, very cool. And content for websites, yeah.
That's something, can I just comment on that? That's something we haven't covered a lot. Content, it's the best tool ever for content. There's no excuse not to have content now, and good quality content on your website now. All those, we used to have a candidate section where hints and tips for candidates. You can do some really good stuff around ChatGPT without having to search Google and cut and paste and do all that. ChatGPT is really good at that stuff. So content, which is valuable to your candidates and your clients, but also great for SEO as well, right?
Yeah, and I know maybe it's something that we can do as part of the follow-up. Tony, we can share some of the other tools that we're seeing out there, at least in the space. Again, because there's the ones that we know about, right? The ones that we're using is ChatGPT. There's Google Bard that will help with a lot of the text-based content. But then there's visual-based content. There's marketing-based website-based content. There's videos. There's graphics. Other things. Lots of other things that are out there that can be used if you haven't checked those out.
All right. Anything else? Can we maybe just summarize maybe just the key elements of AI ChatGPT that? Well, there was a question. Oh, sorry, I didn't see it.
Do you know if there's been any development know if there's been any development into the workarounds to people white labeling applications. So it's where so someone puts in a cover letter, submits a cover letter where they've literally copied the job description, put it into the background, and whited it out. So it's into the if any screening tools run through it, it's picking up all of the right words. It's matching the job criteria exactly because it's actually in their cover letter, just hidden.
Can you repeat? Sorry, Matt.
So I'll probably have to come back to you on that. We have we use internal technology, but also a couple of partners that help with parsing of data and then be able to help with the screening and the sourcing. Daxtra and some others that come to mind, but I'll have to come back to you with maybe some more specific thoughts around that.
All right, we're going to finish up unless there was any more, but I do want one last thing from Martin, please. Maybe a summary of just the 5 things that every recruitment company should be using AI/chat GPT for right now. What are the base level must-dos to stay ahead of the competition and to elevate, I guess, the quality control of a recruitment company?
Yeah, I'm just going to probably call out the ones I had before, but it's just more about how you actually get started and get going, right? It's about how do you actually create that that experimentation culture with the team, right? So start with essentially what you're trying to solve for. What are your business challenges, right now? What are the things that you really want to lean into, whether it's business development, candidate care, or actually more effective job advertising? And then so pick that, and then work with your team, right, to kickstart this or keep it going. Leverage your team. Find that champion if you've got one, and then have them be that that champion for your team, and then do some sharing, right? Experiment and share, and then focus on what's working, and then how you learn from the things that are not working, and then just and it's an atomic habit just to get started with it and keep going.
Okay, makes sense, everybody. Hope you all got some good ideas, and we'll take it to the next level, whatever level you're at. That is our hope, I guess, that you really start getting into it. And if not just for improving quality, improving communications with your candidates and your clients, I mean, that's going to have huge benefit, especially as this market continues to change and challenge us all. So, Martin, thank you very much. Thanks for all the work you put into that presentation, and really good. And thanks for hosting us, of course, here, JobAdder, and all our supporters. Next month, final Captain's Table of the year, we're going to cover another big industry topic that hasn't been covered that much, and that's cybersecurity. We've got a cybersecurity expert who knows about professional services, businesses, recruitment companies, for example. What are the risks? Where are the risks? How big is the cybersecurity problem? Something like 400,000 attacks occur in Australia every year. We only hear about a very few of them, because many companies obviously don't want to publicize that they have been attacked and their information has been exposed. And you mentioned before privacy issues. This is a huge one. Security is a big one. So the cybersecurity expert is going to talk about how recruitment companies can better protect their data. And the other big questions around insurance is how much insurance should you have? What sort of coverage is important? And so we'll cover all aspects around cyber, and I think you'll find it really interesting. That'll be in the 3rd or 4th week of next month. So thank you very much, everyone. Thanks to our supporters. Thanks, JobAdder, for having us. And thank you all very much for being here. We look forward to seeing you next month. Thank you.